I was sworn enemies with a domineering CEO, yet everyone kept mistaking us for a couple. I explained myself so many times that I eventually got tired of it and let the rumors run wild. Until one day, a stunning woman showed up at my door. "Break up with him," she said coolly. "Whatever you want, I'll give it to you." I was just about to explain, when I noticed the man standing behind her. Tall legs. Broad shoulders. A narrow waist. Bryce. My high school crush of 3 entire years. My eyes lit up instantly. "You're serious?" I blurted out. "Then I want him." When I heard that Bryce, the boy I'd secretly loved back in high school, had fallen on hard times, ended up working as a male model, and was being kept by a wealthy woman, my heart broke. I cried at home for 2 whole days. We were both rich women, so why did this kind of good fortune never fall on me? Was I just not trying hard enough? I hated it. But now my chance had finally arrived. At that moment, I was sitting in my family's cafe, basking in the sunlight, lost in melancholy, completely unaware that happiness was quietly making its way toward me. "Are you Julie?" A sweet, crisp female voice sounded above my head. I looked up in confusion. Standing there was a striking beauty with bold features, her arms crossed over her chest, eyes filled with hostility as she sized me up. "Meh. Nothing special," she scoffed. "Just a bit fair-skinned. A slightly slimmer waist." I'd been eating fitness meals for a whole month. I couldn't suppress the smile tugging at my lips. "Thank you. You've got a great figure too." "Don't try to get friendly," she snapped. "I'm here for one thing only. Break up with Zachary. Name your price, I'll give it to you." Zachary. Again. I was exhausted from explaining. Why were the rumors about me dating Zachary still everywhere? At this point, I seriously suspected that Zachary was deliberately using me as a shield to dump someone else. But not explaining made me look guilty. "Miss," I said politely, "first of all, Zachary and I are not a couple, and I don't like him. Second, I wish you two a long and happy marriage, and lots of kids. And lastly, I don't lack anything, so you really don't need." Before I could finish, my attention was drawn to the handsome man slowly approaching behind her. I'd seen my fair share of men, but just the sight of his physique made my heart race. My gaze traveled upward. And the moment I saw his face, I froze. Bryce. What was he doing here? Years had passed, and he was even more handsome now. That face could make even the coldest woman smile. Bryce glanced at me briefly, his expression completely indifferent. "We were classmates once, wasn't that a bit too cold?" Then again, he'd always been like this, equally disdainful toward everyone. His attention remained fixed on the woman in front of him. "Joanna," he said softly, "can we go home first?" "Get lost. This has nothing to do with you." It was the first time I'd ever seen Bryce lower his voice to coax someone. Could this Joanna be the rich woman who was keeping him? No wonder she was so arrogant. A repeat offender, huh? That little brat, what luck she had. That was Bryce we were talking about. The ultimate unattainable flower, never even dated anyone, now reduced to being her obedient dog. At this point, it wasn't her trying to persuade me to break up with Zachary anymore. I wanted to persuade her to break up with Bryce. Ignoring Bryce's attempts to stop her, Joanna pulled out a chair and sat down across from me, clearly prepared to stay until this was settled. "Julie," she sneered, "I've seen plenty of women like you. You say you're not interested, but behind the scenes you cling and grovel. You really think Zachary likes you? He only agreed to be with you because he couldn't stand your constant pestering. My advice? Take the hint and walk away while you still have some dignity." My mind was completely occupied by Bryce. Everything she said reached my ears as, "Hee, I brought you a man, do you want him?" "Yes. Of course I did." I pinched Joanna's endlessly chattering mouth shut with my thumb and forefinger. "Quiet. I just want to ask you one thing. If I agree to break up with Zachary, will you really give me anything I want?" She slapped my hand away and snorted disdainfully. "Name your price." I smiled sweetly and shook my head. "I've got plenty of money. I want him." I pointed straight at Bryce. My gaze was unwavering. "What did you say?" Joanna shot to her feet. "You want him? Do you even know who he is?" "I do," I said cheerfully. "He's the man of my dreams." Shamelessly speaking, I'd been obsessed with Bryce since high school, and after hearing he'd become a male model, I was even more obsessed. Who could understand the sheer value of a real-life CEO face that had been properly trained? Ignoring Joanna's stunned stare, I walked up to Bryce. "Bryce, I know you went through a lot after your family went bankrupt," I said earnestly. "But from now on, you don't have to force yourself anymore. Because your support has arrived." "Bankrupt?" Bryce looked utterly confused, as if he were hearing this for the first time. Slowly, confusion turned into disbelief. He seemed to be searching his memory, trying to place me. Only then did I realize. Back in high school, from Bryce's perspective, I was just a girl who'd run away blushing after exchanging a single sentence with him. Years later, not only was I offering to keep him, I was also full of slick lines, smooth and practiced like a seasoned player. Of course he was shocked. But what was with that look of disgust? Was he embarrassed at the idea of being kept by an old classmate? Or had life simply not been hard enough yet? You don't have to feel pressured, I added quickly. We can start as friends. I won't force you. And whatever allowance I give you, it'll be generous. Bryce remained unmoved. Honestly? He was laying it on a bit thick. My pride couldn't take it. I awkwardly withdrew my hand. The next second, he reached out and held it instead. No need, he said calmly. Let's just go through the proper procedure. I said nothing, only pressed harder on the accelerator. A drive that usually took 40 minutes somehow took only 20 today. The moment we stepped inside, I dropped the act. I hooked an arm around Bryce's neck and dragged him eagerly toward the bedroom. One of his hands wrapped around my waist, the other cradled my head, careful to keep me from smashing into the wall behind me in my impatience. Miss Brown, he asked cautiously, aren't we moving a little too fast? Shut up, I snapped. Don't ruin the mood. But it's still daytime. So many excuses. My patience wore thin. Fine, I said. I'll indulge you this once, just because you're good looking. I turned and yanked the curtains shut in one swift motion. Then I flashed him a mischievous grin. Now it's nighttime. Bryce's smile froze. Did he seriously think I'd let him off that easily? What a fool. Seeing that excuses weren't working, Bryce stopped pretending. Miss Brown, you said you wouldn't force me. I said I wouldn't force you, I replied coolly. I never said I didn't want you. Silly, haven't you heard the saying? A woman's words are the biggest liars. I stepped closer, lifting his chin with my fingers. Call me baby. A flicker of embarrassment flashed in Bryce's eyes. Unable to resist my insistence, he turned his head slightly and murmured, baby. Not affectionate enough. Again. He clenched his jaw and repeated it, over and over, each time more reluctantly than the last. His gaze gradually shifted, from hollow to dangerously intense. So this was what it felt like to train a man. It was exhilarating. What kind of bland, joyless life had I been living before this? I had to admit, after becoming a model, Bryce really was different. Back then, he'd been the icy academic genius, aloof, stern, untouchable. Now? 8-pack abs. Defined lines. Completely at my mercy. At first, I was thoroughly enjoying myself. But then I noticed the way his brow was furrowed, eyes tightly shut. And suddenly, I lost interest. I felt like some despicable villain taking advantage of him. When I stopped moving, Bryce opened his eyes in confusion. What's wrong? This is boring. I pulled away from him. Boring, he echoed, disbelief heavy in his voice. What do you mean, boring? Forcing something never tastes sweet. How would you know if you haven't even forced it? He shot back. I was completely stunned. I'd stopped pressuring him. Shouldn't he be relieved? Why did he look disappointed instead? Do you think I'm dirty? He blurted out suddenly. I'm sorry, I'll leave right now. He had clearly misunderstood. He got up and began gathering the clothes scattered across the floor. 10 whole minutes passed, and he still hadn't finished getting dressed. Even I was getting anxious watching him. At this hour, I said helplessly, you really don't have to wear a tie. He looked up sharply. You're kicking me out. This was completely backwards. They say you shouldn't coddle men, do it too much, and they start overthinking everything. But with Bryce's body, it was incredibly hard not to soften. I sighed and stepped forward, stopping him. Enough. Let's talk this through instead of putting your clothes on every time. I'm not disgusted by you. I just didn't want you to feel unwilling. I wanted to take it slow. No need to take it slow. Bryce cut in hastily. The look in his eyes, hungry, unfinished, was nothing like the long-suffering expression he'd worn earlier. Realizing he'd overexposed himself, he quickly looked away, awkward. Don't worry. I still have professional integrity. You can continue. As if to prove his resolve, he grabbed my hand and placed it against himself. The speed of his mood shift left me feeling trapped. If I didn't do anything, he might think I found him disgusting. If I did, I worried he'd feel wronged. After all, he'd just gone through such upheaval. Caught in this dilemma. The doorbell rang. I seized the opportunity to slip away, desperate for a moment to breathe. But heaven wasn't feeling merciful. Zachary had arrived. The doorbell kept ringing. For some reason, it made me feel like I was about to be caught cheating. Damn rumors, they really ruin lives. Bryce noticed my panic and asked cautiously, who is it? Why are you so nervous? The property manager, I said quickly. Ignore it. When no one opened the door, Zachary shouted from outside, Julie, open up. I need to talk to you. I know you're home. What, are you hiding a man in there? How did he know? Had Joanna told him? I gnawed on my fingers anxiously. When my eyes accidentally met Bryce's, he stared at me with a half-smile. The property manager? I had to admit, it was a terrible excuse. But the priority right now was getting Zachary to leave. If he found out about Bryce, he'd definitely run straight to my parents and start spouting nonsense. He'd always loved tattling on me since we were kids. Back in high school, the one time I'd finally worked up the courage to ask Bryce out to a movie, Zachary had reported me, causing me to miss it. Though, to be fair, Bryce probably hadn't shown up anyway. Should I go deal with him for you? Bryce offered, assuming the stance of a rightful partner as he moved toward the door. I nearly jumped out of my skin. No. You can't open it. He can't see us like this, or it'll be impossible to explain. I pointed at the vivid lipstick mark on his slightly open collar. Bryce said nothing, letting me push him back into the bedroom with a blank expression. As I was frantically trying to figure out what to do, he suddenly spoke. So, he said quietly, I'm the one who has to stay hidden. The sarcasm and resentment in his voice were unmistakable. I shook my head hard. You can't be seen. My parents are ridiculously upright. If they find out I'm keeping a man, my life as a rich heiress is over. Bryce stared at me, his broken gaze eerily resembling that of a homeless stray. Bryce, I asked hesitantly, did you think of yourself as my boyfriend? Of course not, he denied instantly. I pouted slightly, disappointed despite myself. Being my boyfriend wouldn't have been so bad. But this arrangement was fine too. At least breakups would be clean. Bryce glanced thoughtfully toward the door. Your boyfriend doesn't know the password to your place. He's just my boyfriend, I replied casually. Not my husband. Bryce laughed in disbelief. Julie, you really haven't changed at all. Still eating from one bowl while eyeing another. The way he said it made me sound like a heartless, serial cheater. The kind who'd already broken his heart once before. I couldn't swallow this insult anymore and snapped back without hesitation. Bryce, I'll admit it, I liked you back in high school. But I kept myself in check. I only asked you out to the movies once. How does that make me a scumbag? And besides, I shot back, didn't you fail to show up too? Bryce started to deny it. But then it was as if he remembered something. He turned his head away sharply, jaw clenched. Aren't you afraid this will blow up in your face? He asked coldly. Not really, I replied casually. I've got plenty of properties. Worst case scenario, we just move somewhere else. I thought it was a perfectly reasonable solution. It would spare us a lot of unnecessary trouble. But Bryce looked genuinely upset. I'm not someone who can be treated casually. I stared at him, completely baffled. Then, do we keep going or not? Is that all you care about? He asked. What else would I care about? Was my intention of keeping a man still not obvious enough? To be honest, there were two reasons I decided to keep Bryce. Half of it was because I'd been hung up on him for years. The other half was because my skin had been terrible lately, my period cramps were killing me, and people online kept telling me to get a boyfriend. I'm the type who listens to advice. And it's not like strangers on the internet would deliberately ruin my life. I was just worrying about where to find a suitable candidate. When Bryce practically delivered himself to my doorstep. Bryce looked at me, disappointment written all over his face. So even if it weren't me, he asked quietly, you'd keep someone else? That's one way to put it. Since ancient times, women have suffered endlessly, endured hardship after hardship. Now that life is finally good, what's wrong with keeping a man? Seriously, what's wrong with it? Besides, it's consensual. Did he really have to paint me as some morally bankrupt villain? Bryce's face darkened completely. I had no energy left to comfort him. Because Zachary's phone call came through. That guy was stubborn to the core, leave him alone, and he'd keep knocking all night. I had no choice but to answer. I was just about to make up an excuse to send him away. When my phone was suddenly snatched out of my hand. Bryce stepped closer, eyes dark and unreadable. Didn't you say we were continuing? The sudden closeness made me stutter. Zachary's still outside. If he doesn't see me, he'll start suspecting things. Isn't that even more exciting? Bryce murmured. He can't get in anyway. Or, are you scared? That was creepy. Wasn't his personality shift a little too fast? When he saw I wasn't taking the bait, Bryce changed tactics. He looked at me with wet, pleading eyes. Don't go see him. I'll be better than him, much better. He clearly misunderstood my relationship with Zachary. Afraid that once my boyfriend caught me, I'd throw him away. I'd heard that after his family went bankrupt, they'd been buried in debt. Otherwise, with his pride, how could he have ended up as a model? Let alone acting this, soft and manipulative now. All of a sudden, I realized I could no longer hear Zachary shouting outside. I grabbed Bryce by the tie and pulled him toward me gently. If you don't want me to go see him, I said calmly, then bark like a dog. Bark well, and I won't go. Bryce didn't hesitate for even a second. Woof. Me. Zachary, outside, since when did Julie start keeping a dog? Zachary ran off. He'd been afraid of dogs since childhood. Bruce hadn't liet. He really was very good. And extremely obedient. A natural-born candidate for the role. I was beyond satisfied. So the next morning, when I woke up, I transferred him 10 million without hesitation. He was afraid I'd abandon him. And I was afraid he'd run away. Men who looked capable, and were actually even more capable, were rare. Don't get the wrong idea. I meant that he finished all the housework before going to work. You know I rarely praise men. We'd gone to bed late the night before, yet he still got up early to clean. And after that, he still had to go to work. Paying 10 million a month? I honestly felt like I'd gotten a bargain. I picked up my phone, intending to message Bryce. But Zachary's message popped up first. Julie, I'm standing outside the police station right now. If you don't show up, I'm going in to file a report. Zachary, are you out of your damn mind? The very next second, his call came through. I answered impatiently. Spit it out. I heard Joanna went to see you. Are you okay? You knocked on my door for 2 hours over that? So you heard me, then why didn't you open the door? I open it if I feel like it. If I don't, I don't. Julie, I'm not involved with Joanna like that. She's the one who keeps pestering me. I know you're angry, and that part is on me. But take a step back, don't you bear some responsibility too? If you weren't always single, people wouldn't misunderstand our relationship. If you don't mind, I can introduce you to someone. From the sound of it, Zachary clearly had no idea that Joanna had handed me a man. Thank God. Stop right there. I do mind. I mind a lot. Just bringing it up made my blood boil. Once, I'd finally had enough of the rumors. I foolishly believed Zachary and agreed to meet the person he wanted to introduce me to. Zachary might be annoying, but his friends were all good-looking. I spent 2 hours doing my makeup, drove for half an hour, and rushed to the cafe full of anticipation. Only to see Zachary sitting there with a bouquet of flowers, smiling smugly at me. That was when I realized I'd been played. Julie, he said, grinning, you never date. Is it because you like me? Go to hell, I snapped. Where do you get the confidence to say something like that? Zachary, let me say this one last time, I don't like you. Not now. Not ever. And I have a boyfriend. Stop meddling. Zachary fired back just as fiercely. Watch your mouth, Julie. You look down on me? I look down on you too. Besides being pretty, what do you even have going for you? No, seriously, why do you get to look down on me? Am I really that worthless in your eyes? And don't bother making up some fake boyfriend just to piss me off. How many men are around you? I'd know. I was exhausted. Too lazy to argue. Believe whatever the hell you want, I snapped. Get lost. I hung up and blocked Zachary again. I was truly sick of him. How could a man's mouth be that foul? After everything was done, I switched moods instantly and texted Bryce, my dear consort, how many surprises do you still have hidden from this emperor? I attached a meme. A few minutes later, Bryce replied, you'll find out tonight. I'm getting off work early today. I immediately flushed and cursed back, do you have no shame saying things like that? Is this how your parents raised you? I'm sorry, he replied obediently. It won't happen again. Pure and dirty at the same time, he really knew how to get to me. Since I had nothing to do in the afternoon, I suggested picking him up after work. He sent a voice message in response, hesitant and awkward, clearly reluctant to let me come. Probably afraid his coworkers would misunderstand. Which, honestly, was understandable. After turning off my phone, a sudden sense of unease crept over me. Wait a second. Wasn't he working as a model at a club? Then why was he still going to work in broad daylight? Don't tell me, was he juggling 2 jobs? That was heartbreaking. Thank goodness our family hadn't gone bankrupt. With that thought, I felt perfectly justified as I headed back to the bedroom and caught up on some sleep. From that day on, Bryce and I were together every single day. Other than going out to eat, we hardly ever left the house. On the surface, Bryce looked cold and aloof. In reality, he was incredibly clingy. Clingy to the point where he barely left my side. Strangely enough, I didn't find it annoying at all. In fact, I thoroughly enjoyed having him glued to me. Life during that period was so blissful that I didn't even have time to spiral on social media. Over time, my group of rich kid friends started to sense something was off. Julie, you've been acting weird lately. Spill it, did you get yourself a man? Is he hot? How old is he? Keeping a male model wasn't exactly rare in our circle. But Bryce was too high quality. I was afraid that if word got out, someone might try to steal him away. After all, there was always someone willing to pay more. And besides, Bryce was worth it. You have no idea how capable he is. Last night alone. Never mind. I won't go into details. It wouldn't pass censorship anyway. I brushed them off with a random excuse. No. I've just been busy with work lately. Are you insane? One of them scoffed. Since when have you ever worked? Oops. I'd completely forgotten about that. Ever since I was little, my dad had drilled one principle into me: sweetheart, it's fine if you're uneducated, lazy, and good for nothing. As long as you don't start a business, our family's money will last you 3 lifetimes. I'd patted my chest confidently and promised, don't worry, Dad. I know how to be a proper couch potato. He'd been very pleased. After a moment, he'd asked again, somewhat worried, sweetheart, you don't chase celebrities, do you? You wouldn't go online and cyberbully people, right? I shook my head. Of course not. I'd never do something that unethical. Only then did my dad finally relax. My group of friends had plenty of good qualities. The only thing they lacked was a sense of boundaries. They chose a day when Bryce and I were especially entangled and showed up at my place unannounced. The moment the doorbell rang, I jolted awake and kicked Bryce off the bed. Quick! Find somewhere to hide, I hissed. And clean up everything. I'll open the door. Bryce froze for a second, hurt flashing across his eyes. I thought, after all this time, our relationship was different. So I'm still someone who has to stay hidden. I glanced hurriedly at the maid outfit he was wearing. Just tell me, was this something he could be seen in or not? Enough, I said. Stop saying things that put me in a difficult position. I hurriedly threw on my clothes and rushed out of the bedroom. I didn't notice Bryce's eyes reddening behind me. When I opened the door, I realized Zachary was here too. If it hadn't been for the number of people present, I would have thrown him out on the spot. Julie, you took so long to open the door, still claiming there's no man hidden inside. There isn't. Don't talk nonsense. Look how flustered you are. Feeling guilty, huh? Enough, someone cut in. Zachary's still here, don't stir up trouble between the two of them. I genuinely couldn't understand it. Why was it that no matter how many times I explained, they still refused to believe there was nothing between Zachary and me? I was really starting to get angry. Anyone who brings me up together with Zachary again can leave. Got it, don't be mad. This time it was Zachary's fault. We already taught him a lesson for you. Well, everything I said was pointless. Zachary stood in the entryway, staring at the largest pair of men's shoes on the rack, lost in thought. After a long pause, he muttered, Uncle's got pretty big feet. It was 1 a.m. I was exhausted, yet they still showed no signs of leaving. I wondered how Bryce was doing. It was only 20 degrees outside, and he was wearing so little. Would he catch a cold? I looked toward the bedroom, worried. One of my friends suddenly noticed the necklace around my neck and gasped. Julie, damn. You're impressive. You already got your hands on the latest limited edition? This one's impossible to buy, even with money. It's fake. Aside from the necklace, Bryce had also given me bracelets, earrings, and a bunch of other accessories. They were fake, yes, but exquisitely made. They looked so real that even I had almost been fooled. But that didn't matter. When you like someone, even something worthless becomes precious if it comes from them. Besides, I had money. If I wanted something, I could buy it myself. Once you stop caring about these things, whether they're real or fake stops mattering too. Real at a glance, she said dismissively. We're all rich kids here. Do you really think we don't know what you can afford? Her family ran a jewelry business. She'd grown up immersed in it, there was no way she'd misjudge. But Bryce's family had gone bankrupt. Where would he get the money to buy something this expensive? Just as that doubt crossed my mind, a sudden noise came from the bedroom. The once lively living room fell silent in an instant. Everyone exchanged looks. No one said a word, but from their expressions alone, it was obvious. All kinds of guesses were already forming. I quickly forced a laugh and said, I recently got a dog. It's really mischievous, loves wrecking the place. Don't worry about it. Aren't you allergic to dog hair? Someone asked. Silence. Utter silence. Silence really was tonight's river cam. That question seemed to remind Zachary of something. His gaze locked onto the bedroom door, unblinking. You're mistaken, I said stiffly. I'm allergic to cat hair. Is that so? He replied slowly. Then I must be remembering it wrong. All right, it's getting late. You guys should head back, I said, standing up and ushering them toward the door. I deliberately ignored Zachary. It wasn't until I sensed something was off that I realized Zachary was already standing in the bedroom, staring straight at Bryce, who was still wearing the maid outfit. They were locked in a wide-eyed standoff. Zachary broke the silence first. Julie, is this the dog you're raising? So what if he is? I shot back. Can't I have one? In an instant, everyone swarmed into gawk at Bryce. Voices overlapped in a chaotic chorus. I thought she was just talking big, didn't expect her to actually do it. The official partner being Zachary is one thing, but the side piece is this hot, and even willing to wear a maid outfit? I'm jealous, but I won't say it out loud. Julie, you're a role model for our generation. Bryce's lips curled upward from all the praise. I strongly suspected he'd made the noise on purpose, just to get caught. As if reading my thoughts, Bryce immediately looked guilty. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I was crouched in the closet too long, my legs went numb. I really was awful. How could I have doubted him? Zachary looked like a man who'd just walked in on his girlfriend cheating. His face was pure shock. Don't tell me you two were on this bed, he swallowed. I can't live anymore. Zachary, that's enough drama, I said, rolling my eyes and lowering my voice in warning. But he didn't listen at all. Julie, this is your taste? He pointed at Bryce's maid outfit in open disdain. You like this kind of thing? How vulgar. I nodded honestly. I do. Zachary froze for a full minute. Then he completely lost it. Right in front of everyone, he ripped off his jacket. I can do it too. My body's no worse than his. No one could stop him. Stripping himself wasn't enough, he started yelling at Bryce, demanding that Bryce take off the maid outfit so he could wear it. He was convinced he'd look even sexier in it than Bryce. And to be fair, Zachary wasn't bluffing. The scene descended into utter chaos. Seeing that nothing would stop him, I walked up and slapped Zachary across the face without hesitation. Have you had enough yet? Zachary touched his cheek and stared at me stupidly. The expression on his face wasn't anger or shock. It was satisfaction. Julie, he said hoarsely, if he can be your dog, why can't I? If you dump him, wouldn't I be cleaner than him? Absurd. Absolutely absurd. After Zachary's meltdown, only a couple of days passed before my parents showed up. No need to guess, Zachary had definitely snitched. I was truly impressed by his dedication. To mess with me, he would stop at nothing. The moment they walked in, my dad launched into a furious scolding. Julie, you've disappointed me deeply. How could you do something like this? Are you trying to kill your mother and me? At that, my mom paused her game and looked up. Talk about yourself all you want, don't drag me into it. I'm not dying anytime soon. Stop throwing around death every time you're angry. My dad froze. Sorry. I was too upset. Since my parents had arrived in the evening, I'd forgotten to warn Bryce not to come back. So when he walked into the living room, arms full of shopping bags, my dad was in the middle of shouting, what kind of man could possibly be so bewitching that you'd do something like this? I'm ordering you, break up with him immediately. Bryce stood there awkwardly, completely at a loss. I rubbed my temples. I was doomed. He'd walked straight into the line of fire. With my dad's temper, if I didn't break it off with Bryce, my life as a rich heiress would be over. I struggled internally for a long time. In the end, money won over love. But when I turned around, my dad was already shaking hands with Bryce. He said earnestly, you two should date properly. I think very highly of you. Don't worry, sir, Bryce replied solemnly. I'll take good care of Julie. I was stunned. What kind of plot twist was this? Was Bryce some kind of top-tier succubus? One look, and my dad was completely won over? It didn't matter. What mattered was how good it felt, to have my parents' approval. I thought that after meeting my parents, Bryce and I would grow even closer. But unexpectedly. From that day on, I began to feel like Bryce was avoiding me. He wouldn't answer my calls. He wouldn't reply to my messages. I couldn't take it anymore. So I decided to go find him, and demand an explanation. Unexpectedly, the moment I arrived downstairs at his company, I saw Joanna from afar, her arm linked intimately through Bryce's. The two of them were chatting and laughing, looking exactly like a loving couple. It felt like a bucket of cold water had been dumped over my head. No wonder he didn't want me to pick him up after work. I took out my phone and called Bryce. He glanced at the caller ID and hesitated. Joanna asked softly beside him, is that Julie? How long are you planning to hide our relationship from her? Aren't you afraid she'll make a scene if she finds out? I let out a cold laugh. No need to hide it anymore. I hung up. Then I sent a message instead, get lost. I turned, put on my sunglasses, and walked away without looking back. Perfect. Time to replace him. I told the housekeeper to pack up Bryce's things and called for an express courier. Then I changed the door password and blocked every single way Bryce could contact me. The housekeeper asked carefully, did you break up? I snapped my compact shut. Wrong. That's not called a breakup, it's called freeing up a spot. She nodded in sudden understanding and mopped the floor with even more enthusiasm. That night, bored out of my mind, I went to a bar. Maybe my rich lady aura was too obvious, plenty of people came over to flirt. Psych, eating fine grain like Bryce for too long really does have its downsides. You start finding all other pig feet unbearable. Standing there felt even more boring than staying home. After about half a drink, I was ready to leave when a tall figure caught my eye not far away. Dim lighting. A man in a tailored suit, broad shoulders, narrow waist, long legs, a melancholy air about him. I stepped closer. It was Zachary. How unlucky. I cursed under my breath and turned to leave. Zachary grabbed my arm. Julie, I heard you dumped him. None of your damn business. Well then, he said eagerly, if he's gone, can I be your dog instead? I'll listen better than him, and I don't even need an allowance. I'll pay you. You can keep me, okay? Utter madness. Zachary, there's seriously something wrong with your brain. I suggest you go to the hospital ASAP, don't delay treatment. Julie, he said urgently, I like you. I've liked you since we were kids. Everyone I've ever liked was you. I did a lot of stupid things just to get your attention, don't you get it yet? I froze. Zachary, liked me? Holy hell. He actually liked me? I'd treated him like my archenemy for years, so he thought I was flirting with him the whole time? The audacity. I opened my mouth to curse him out. When Zachary suddenly lunged forward and hugged me. His chest was broad, clearly built from years of working out. He held me so tightly I could barely breathe. Julie, please, he begged. Don't reject me. I really, really like you. Was he crying? Oh ho. So this day finally came for you. I should take a picture and save it, future blackmail material. I reached for my phone. When I looked up, I saw Bryce standing straight ahead under the lights, staring fixedly at Zachary and me. It had only been a few days, but he looked much more worn down. Serving two patrons at once, no wonder. I really was terrible. Seeing him, my first instinct was to shove Zachary away, like a guilty thief caught red-handed. Bryce sneered. You were in such a hurry to dump me, no explanation at all. Was it all for him? Bryce had the kind of face where the slightest hint of hurt made it seem like the whole world had wronged him. Julie, was I just part of your childhood friend's roleplay? I should have known, you could never really like me. Keeping me was just to spite him. Asking me to the movies back in high school was also to spite him? I was the fool, getting played by the two of you, and doing it willingly. Julie, after all this time together, I thought you had some feelings for me. Clearly, I was wrong. I wish you happiness. After Bryce left, I stood there for a long time, unable to process what had just happened. I didn't even notice when Joanna came over. Without a word, she raised her hand and slapped Zachary hard across the face. You bastard. Zachary clutched his cheek, completely stunned. Joanna, are you insane? I told you a long time ago, I don't like you. I like someone else. You're the one who kept chasing me. Then you're still a bastard. After yelling at him, Joanna stormed over to me. Julie, my brother likes you this much, and you dumped him without a word. Doesn't your conscience hurt at all? Bryce is your brother? My real brother. So, you two weren't in that kind of relationship? Joanna blinked guiltily. You misunderstood it yourself. Besides, you were the one who asked for him. You took him and then treated him like that. Do you have any idea what he's been through these past few days? Look at you, glowing and radiant. You didn't suffer for him even once, did you? Actually, that wasn't entirely true. No matter how heartless a woman is, losing a man as good-looking and capable as Bryce would still hurt. Do you know, Joanna continued angrily, that he's liked you since high school? You played with him once back then, and now you played him again. Scumbag. After shouting that, Joanna ran off. I wanted to ask more, but I didn't even get the chance. On the way home, I took out my phone, wanting to explain everything to Bryce. Only then did I remember, I had deleted all his contact information. Thinking back to the resolute way he'd walked away, it felt like he probably never wanted to see me again in this lifetime. Sigh, what a mess. I stepped out of the elevator, completely dazed. Suddenly, a figure darted out from the side. Before I could react, I was pinned against the wall behind me. The lighting was dim. Without a word, he leaned in and kissed me. Forceful, domineering, leaving me no room to breathe. I pounded his chest. Bryce, let go. I won't, he said hoarsely. If I let go, you'll abandon me. He was much stronger than I expected, my wrists hurt under his grip. I slapped him across the face. That finally snapped him back to his senses. There are security cameras, I said coldly. Let's go inside and talk. Bryce regained a bit of composure and followed me in. I set my bag down and took off my coat, planning to have a proper conversation with him. But he misunderstood my intentions. Instead, he pushed me down onto the couch. A dejected Bryce had a strange kind of allure. One that made it hard not to fall for him again. I deliberately teased him. Didn't you say you wished Zachary and me happiness? Then why come back looking for me? I was wrong. I only said that out of anger, he said quickly. I don't want to wish you happiness with him, I want to be happy with you. I don't care about titles. I don't care if I have to stay in the shadows. As long as I can be with you. I'll always be your dog. I laughed at the sight of him like that. Cradling his face, I kissed him lightly. Bryce, I'm sorry. I broke up with you without asking things through first. That must have hurt you a lot. You don't need to apologize, he said softly. You didn't do anything wrong. I was the one who shouldn't have hidden my relationship with Joanna from you. I had my own selfish reasons. I wanted to use that opportunity to be with you, and that's what caused the misunderstanding. I'm sorry. I just wanted to be with you too badly. Bryce took all the blame onto himself. The pitiful look on his face made my heart ache. Idiot, I said gently. Zachary and I were never a couple, from start to finish. Back in high school, the missed movie date was because he told my dad on me. The person I've always liked was you. Only you. I never once thought of using you to spite anyone. I was just, genuinely into you. After hearing that, Bryce was so happy he looked like a fool. He confirmed again and again, so? I can be your boyfriend from now on? We can date openly, go shopping, watch movies, travel together. So that was it. All that time he'd avoided going out was because he thought we were sneaking around. That he was having an affair and might get exposed. What an idiot. If it really were an affair, I would have been even more cautious than him. Bryce's POV. Recently, Joanna had developed a crush on a guy who was already taken. She insisted on confronting his girlfriend in person. I was afraid she'd cause trouble, so I followed her. That was when I unexpectedly reunited with the girl I'd secretly liked back in high school. After graduation, we hadn't seen each other for years. I'd always kept tabs on her from afar, but seeing her in person again was different. She was more beautiful now. Her personality had changed too. Back then, she used to blush just from making eye contact with me. Now, she stared at me without restraint. Almost as if the words "I still want you" were written all over her face. I warned myself silently, Bryce, don't be stupid. She has a boyfriend. You already got played by her once in high school, don't fall for it again. Being the other man never ends well. Do you want to be despised by everyone? But the moment she said she was willing to break up with her boyfriend, on the condition that she could have me, I knew I was finished. This mistake, I wanted to make it again. They weren't married. What was wrong with being kept? Worst case scenario, I'd just be more careful and not let her boyfriend find out. She kissed me. I pretended to hesitate. I didn't expect her to stop, thinking I wasn't willing. Left with no choice, I took the initiative. For the sake of securing my position. Every morning, I got up at 6 to clean the house and make breakfast. I even signed up for a kept man training class. They taught men how to hook rich women. How to make them fall completely and irrevocably. The instructor said a man's body was his capital. If you wanted a woman to be unable to leave you, you needed more than cooking skills, you had to know how to serve. It worked. I could feel her liking me more and more. My next plan was to let her boyfriend discover our relationship. It was immoral, but I had no morals left. The plan succeeded. Her boyfriend found out. They argued. And I realized something else. Their relationship didn't even seem like a real couple. I was happy. I met her parents. Her father was a business partner of my company. Her father supported us wholeheartedly. Then I was dumped. Without a reason. It felt like a hole had been ripped open in my chest. She blocked every way to contact her. I couldn't even beg for reconciliation. I wanted to die. Life without her was unbearable. After a few days apart, I followed her to a bar. I only meant to watch her from afar. But then I saw her in someone else's arms. My heart shattered. I walked over without thinking. Turns out, from beginning to end, I was nothing more than a piece in their childhood friend's roleplay. I was devastated. I said a lot of things I didn't mean. The moment I left the bar, I regretted it. I turned around immediately and waited outside her place. I wanted to tell her that I was willing to be the other man. Thankfully, she explained everything. They weren't a couple. It was all just rumors. Everyone. I succeeded.